Hey, and welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big ideas. So today, we're diving into 6 really powerful psychological hacks. These are designed to turn studying from something you dread into a habit you might actually enjoy.
Okay, so let's just start with the feeling I think we all know too well. You know that dread when you have to open a textbook? That sense that you're about to do something you really don't want to do? Yeah, that one.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the struggle itself. Then we'll get into some pretty cool mind games to tame your brain. After that, it's all about setting up your environment for success. And finally, we'll put it all together into a new study formula just for you.
All right, first things first, we have to understand the root of the problem. And let me be clear, this is not about you being lazy. It's all about how our brains are wired. Okay, so the main character in this whole story is a little chemical called dopamine. You can think of it as the feel-good hormone, or maybe your brain's own motivation coach. It's what gets released when you expect something rewarding. And that is the exact reason why scrolling through Reels feels so easy, and cracking open a book feels like, well, like climbing a mountain. And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's the core conflict. Reels and games, super low effort, and you get that instant pleasure. It's just a constant drip of tiny dopamine hits. But studying, that's high effort. And the reward? The good grade or the degree, that's way down the line. Our brains are just naturally going to pick the easy win.
So what if you could actually outsmart your own brain? What if you could play some games with it? Well, that's exactly what this next part is all about. We're going to look at 3 clever hacks to basically trick your brain into cooperating.
All right, hack number 1 is what I like to call the dopamine loop trick. Here's the secret. Your brain doesn't just release dopamine when you get a reward. It releases it in anticipation of one. Just thinking about the reward is rewarding. So, the trick is to link your study session to a simple, immediate reward. Promise your brain, hey, after this chapter, we're having a nice cup of tea. That little promise creates a new loop, and the anticipation is what helps you get through the tough part.
Okay, hack number 2. This one is huge because it tackles the hardest part of anything, just starting. Right? The thought of a 2-hour study session is exhausting. But 5 minutes? Anyone can do 5 minutes. So you just tell yourself, okay, I'm only going to do this for 5 minutes, that's it. The magic is once you start, you build a little momentum. That tiny victory is often enough to keep you going for way longer.
Now, for hack number 3. This is a mental switch, a little reframe. It's especially for those subjects that you find, incredibly boring. We all have one. For a lot of people, maybe it's physics or history. So instead of going into a class or a study session thinking, ugh, this is gonna be so boring, you consciously tell yourself something different. You say, you know what? Today's class is going to be interesting. It sounds almost too simple to work, but what you're doing is priming your brain. You're telling it to look for the interesting bits, and when you're actively looking, you're much more likely to find them.
All right, so we've worked on the mind games. That's the inner work. Now, let's move on to the outer game. This is all about setting up your environment for success, shaping your world so that focus becomes almost automatic.
This one is all about environmental anchoring. See, your brain is always taking cues from your surroundings. Think about it this way. What happens when you get into bed? Your brain gets a massive signal. Okay, time to sleep. So what do you think happens when you try to study there? You're sending it completely mixed messages. It's getting signals for both sleep and focus, and it just gets confused. So the solution is to create what we call a study anchor. You need to pick one specific, dedicated place for studying. It could be a certain chair, a spot on the balcony, anywhere. But here's the golden rule. You use that spot only for studying. No scrolling your phone, no eating, just studying. When you do this consistently, you train your brain. It learns that when you're in that spot, it's time to get into focus mode automatically.
Okay, let's talk about the progress bar effect. You know why video games are so addictive? A big reason is that you can always see your progress. There's a health bar, an experience bar, something is always filling up. This hack uses that same exact psychology, and it's powerful. The person who created this method said it turned their 20-minute study sessions into 2-hour marathons.
And it's so simple to do. Before you even start, just make a list of all the topics you need to cover. That's it, a simple checklist. Then, as you finish each topic, you physically tick it off the list. You know that satisfying feeling of checking a box? That's a little dopamine hit right there. It's your brain's visual proof of progress. It sees the progress bar filling up, and it makes you want to finish the rest just to complete the whole thing. All right, our last hack is called temptation bundling, and the formula is simple.
You take studying, you add a little bit of enjoyment, and boom, you get easy focus. It's all about making the process itself less of a drag.
So here's how you do it. You combine or bundle studying with something you actually enjoy. A classic example is listening to some music while you read. But, and this is a really important note, you have to choose music without lyrics. Something like lo-fi beats is perfect. Why? Because lyrics can pull your focus away from what you're reading. The goal here is just to make the experience a little less boring so you can stick with it for longer.
So, there you have it. Let's recap. We've just gone through 6 really powerful hacks. We've covered the mind games for your inner world and the setup for your outer world. And when you put them together, you get your new study formula. And you gotta remember, these aren't just a bunch of random tips. This is a toolkit. It's a formula that lets you work with your brain's natural wiring instead of constantly fighting against it. You now have the power to design your environment and totally transform your relationship with studying. Which brings us to the final question. And it's for you. You've got the toolkit now. So, how are you going to trick your brain today?